everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarrusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome back Kathy Pobloskie from Lost Dogs of America and Lost Dogs of Wisconsin. And today, we're going to talk some more about lost pet prevention. February is right around the corner, and that is Pet Theft Awareness Month, and we want to talk about keeping your pets safe. But one of the parts of keeping your pets safe is also keeping them not safe from just pet theft, but keeping them safe and not letting them wander away. And we're going to talk about that first because sadly, we've had too many elderly pets wander off when owners aren't really paying attention because they think that the dog's just going to just stay nearby, but the dog is old, maybe deaf, maybe even blind. And so Kathy's going to talk to us about how to keep your dog safe in that respect. And then we'll talk a little bit about, being aware of pet theft. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we've got this one situation that we've both dealt with, sadly having elderly pets wander off, and that was something that's happened, oh gosh, too many times already in the last couple months, and all of them have passed except one was saved the other day when one of the rescue girls dove in the canal for it in the middle, in the dark and rescued it. Oh my gosh, I know. So that's one thing I really want to talk about.
I thought that was very interesting because you have that issue that we really don't have there. So you have canals, is that correct? Behind
people?
Yeah,
I mean, so many of our areas where people live, they have, well, down here, which I find strange, being from upstate New York, where a lake is a lake and a pond is a pond, but down here they call ponds lakes, and they're really just ponds. But so they'll call them a lake behind their house. A lot of the subdivisions are built with lakes or ponds behind all the homes, and many of the homes are on canals that go into the Gulf, or into the river. And so we have a lot of water around where I am. So sadly, we have lost a lot of old pets here. They wander off and end up in the water.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that is, we have that problem too. I think that's very interesting. I mean, because a lot of people think, when they lose an older pet, they say, oh, I've heard the rumor that old pets go off to die because they don't want to put their owner through that, and we really don't find that at all. I really don't believe that. I believe an older pet wants to be with you as much as he did when he was younger. It's just that they get dementia, and they may lose their, like you said, their hearing or their sight. And then they get confused. They wander off, they get confused, and then something awful happens.
Yeah.
And, it's just so frustrating because it often happens when the dog, for maybe 10 years has gone out to go potty on its own with no problem whatsoever. And it's just the owner's become very complacent that can continue on. And then as the dog gets older and starts to show those signs of dementia, they don't take the time to put them on a leash, or to go out with them and be there with them. And then something horrible happens. And, then they say, oh, well, this never happened before. He's always come right back. And, but it only takes once. And it's just so, so sad.
Yeah. And I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I just tallied up the numbers yesterday for our, what we call Forever in Our Hearts dogs for 2019. And again, for several years in a row, the number 2 cause is drowning. That's our second cause of death. Number 1, of course, being hit by a car, and number 3 being hit by a train. Sometimes we've had a few years where hit by a train actually has, we've had more of those than drowning, but in 2019 we had more drownings hit by a train.
Yeah. Here we don't have really the train situation, but it's cars and then drownings for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sad.
It is. And one of the first things when you said they become complacent, and then they think there's those myths, my dog's not going to walk away. It never has done it before. Or, oh, somebody took the dog. But then when that happens, they don't look as hard, and the very first thing when somebody sends in a report, and even if they don't send in a report, but they've made the post that it's an elderly dog, it doesn't see well, whatever, it doesn't walk good, the very first thing we do is tell them to check any nearby water. They have to check
Mm-hmm.
any nearby water. That is just the very first thing we do, because with the elderly dogs, most of our canals and stuff, they're deep. They can't make it up the sides. They just can't.
Okay.
Once they're in there,
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't get them, they're not going to get
Yeah.
out.
Wow. Yeah. And I notice I have a dog, both my dogs actually are getting older, but with the one, definitely he's losing his eyesight. And I also notice now that he's starting to lose his balance a little bit. And I just really, really watch him around anything where he might fall into, because, he can't see quite as well. So he's kind of looking to see something, and then he loses his balance and topples down. And that's a great fear that he's going to fall down, either down the stairs or into the window well or into, he doesn't really like water, so he usually tries to give water a really wide berth, but down into something he could definitely fall. If he thought that he might see a mouse down there or something, he could easily fall down something quite steep.
Yeah.
And so we just watch him very, very carefully now, and very seldom. He's nearly always on a leash and right beside us now as he gets older.
Yeah, and I think, if somebody, it's hard, after the fact when something happens and I even feel kind of guilty talking about it, because so many of these cases have happened recently, but they're the purpose of this is to educate people so it doesn't keep happening, and not to make somebody feel bad that it did happen. Because it is so sad. But I think if you have an elderly pet that is, not walking so good, is losing its balance, is blind or close to it, you cannot for any reason let your pet out and not watch it until it's done going potty and then bring it back in the house. You just can't. You cannot take that chance anymore, because as you mentioned, that doggy dementia thing or whatever, they forget. They can't find their way back, and they wander off and they're lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you don't have this problem there, but we have had a very mild winter so far. We had a bit of snow in October, and then it's kind of been this really odd cycle of freezing and thawing. And we have had numerous dogs in Wisconsin here fall through thin ice. And luckily, a lot of them have been saved. But dogs don't understand that the ice isn't safe, or that there's, that what was, a good sturdy footing the day before is not so good the next day. And so we just, constantly seem to be harping on people at this time, not generally at this time of the year, it's just been an odd winter. Usually by this time of the year, everything's well frozen, but this year it's just not. And we're just having to constantly remind people to not let their dog go near any bodies of water that would normally be iced over without them being on a leash, because it's just too risky. And you're really then risking the life of the rescuer as well, because that water's cold,
Right.
And the person has to go out and try to rescue the dog, there's a good chance that they're going to end up falling through as well.
Yeah. I just saw, and I didn't pay close enough attention to see if it was actually, because sometimes the videos we see online are older, but I want to think that it was a new one of a dog being rescued from thin ice. I just saw it last week, and it's frightening. The man that went out there, he ended up breaking through the ice himself, and rescuing the dog, and everyone was okay. But still, it's scary for both the dog and the rescuer if it's not done by a fire department with the right equipment or whatever else. It's very dangerous.
Yes, we had a horrible case here. It was earlier this winter, and a man's dog fell in, and he jumped in to try to rescue the dog, and unfortunately he drowned. And the dog survived. The dog went downstream a ways and came up and managed to get out on his own, but the man died. It was horrible.
Oh, geez. And I know that, people love their animals so much that they're willing to take that chance to save them, not realizing what they're getting into when it's freezing cold like that. Yeah. Right. It's very, very dangerous.
And again, you don't want to you feel horrible saying something after the fact, but again, just keeping that dog on a leash could have prevented such a tragedy,
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, people just become complacent. They think that it won't happen to me, or my dog has never wandered away before, or and then when it happens, it's really sad.
Yeah, and even some of these little ones, there's no harm as far as I see. Of course, there are tethering laws, etc., but there's no harm in having a little tie out, that you can, if you're gonna run back in the house for 5 minutes, tie your dog out on a little tie out so it can go to the bathroom, and you don't have to worry about anything bad happening to it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You can't leave it out all day, but for 5 minutes, it's okay.
Yes,
and it's a lot safer. It's a lot safer. So
I had my dog one time. I had my dog in Texas one time on one of those little tie outs, and the soil is that red clay, and I guess my tie out wasn't in my little stake wasn't in the ground enough, and I put him out, and I just, like you said, and then I just gone in to do something, and a couple of minutes later the neighbor is like ringing the front doorbell and said, "Is this your dog?" And she's got the tie out and my dog.
Oh, jeez.
And I guess he'd been running down the street with the tie out behind them, chasing a squirrel.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, those tie outs here, I don't know. You'd actually have to tie it to something, probably to your house, because our soil here is like sand, and it doesn't hold much either, unless it's turned into like cement when we don't have any rain. So
anyway, so get the tie out in really good and firmly.
So what else goes along with this type of thought process? It always, I don't know. I have a hard time. I mean, already here we are. We tape before the show goes on, so it's only January 9th. So we're only 9 days into 2020, and in the first 4 days we had, and remember, we're only 2 counties here in Florida, and they're not big counties. We had 44 dogs home safe in 4 days. And 1 deceased. We're starting to do weekend statistics. And just yesterday, we had 13 in 1 day home safe, which is great. Wow. I mean, that's great. But that's telling you how many are already getting lost,
isn't that
it's
something?
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I don't understand what's happening unless it's because snowbirds are coming to town, or I don't know. But all of a sudden, it's been crazy.
Do you think that because you're becoming better known, that more dogs are being listed with you, and that's what's making the increase in numbers? Or do you think?
I mean, it could be. It could be.
Because after 10 years, we actually looked at our numbers this year, and we feel like we're finally leveling off. Mm-hmm. That we're probably kind of saturating. Most people know about us and are filing a report with us. So our numbers aren't going up by the great leaps and bounds that they were going up with before. So that's a good thing for us.
And I do, we grow by, I don't know, 400 approximately members every month. So I know it's just, so I think that, between that, the growth, and it just being more recognized as the place to turn to, that's probably it. So I don't know if there really is more lost, or if it's just because of the other, like you said, the other situation. But anyways, the thing that we did notice, especially so far this week, is, I mean, like today I had